Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Bol Hari Bol. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Gyananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuktapadagammalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paridana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanditanscha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadeshatarine Panchakampatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Shri Prahlad Lakshmi Nrsimhadeva ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Oh. I'm wondering, I thought to start with Bhagavad-gita, but then to turn direction to have some slides on hermeneutics. I don't know, is it too much action to set everything up for slides? Possible? Shambhav Habe. I have, that's over there. Can you get my black bag, which is there? Black bag. Right behind, yeah. Okay, there's a USB stick, I think. Unless I put it here. Oh, maybe not. It's somewhere. There it is. Okay. So, Hare Krishna. Actually, please feel free to come closer. I'm going to start imitating Madhavananda Prabhu. He says, come on, everybody, get close. All right, we'll start with Bhagavad-gita, chapter 2, verse number 16. And then we can go to this other topic. How are we with English language? Everyone okay? More or less? I'll try to speak not too fast. But first we start with Sanskrit. And we can repeat, nāsato vidyate bhāvo. Nāsato vidyate bhāvo. Nābhāvo vidyate sataḥ. Nābhāvo vidyate sataḥ. Ubhayor dṛṣṭo ntas. Ubhayor dṛṣṭo ntas. Anayos tattva-darśibhiḥ. Anayos tattva-darśibhiḥ. Nāsato vidyate bhāvo. Nābhāvo vidyate sataḥ. Ubhayor dṛṣṭo ntas. Anayos tattva-darśibhiḥ. Vidyate bhāvo. Nābhāvo vidyate sataḥ. dṛṣṭo ntas. Anayos tattva-darśibhiḥ. Nāsato vidyate bhāvo. Nābhāvo vidyate sataḥ. Ubhayor dṛṣṭo ntas. Anayos tattva-darśibhiḥ. Okay, what does this mean? Na, never. Asataḥ, of the non-existent. Vidyate, there is. Bhāva, endurance. Na, never. Abhāvaḥ, changing quality. Vidyate, there is. sataḥ, of the eternal, ubhayor, of the two, abhi, verily, dṛṣṭaḥ, observed, antaḥ, conclusion, two, indeed, anayos, of them, tattva, of the truth, tattva-darśibhiḥ, by the seers. Translation and at least some of the purport by Srila Prabhupada. Translation: those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent, the material body, there is no endurance. And of the eternal, the soul, there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. Before we go to the purport, let's look a little at the Sanskrit. The last two words, tattva-darśibhiḥ, you might find this, this might remind you of a verse in chapter 4 of Bhagavad-gita. Let's see if anyone can think what that would be. In chapter 4, yes? Yes, how does the verse go? Darshana, yes. So what is a tattva-darshi? It is a seer in the uninflected form. So I've explained this a few times. We have some words that end in a short I and then end. So we have yogi in the nominative case. But if it's uninflected, that means it's no grammatical adjustment made. Then it's yogin. It's also swamin. That's why when we chant Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Swamin Iti. But in that case, it's vocative. So darshin, tattva-darshin, is one who sees, darshana, drish. And what does he or she see? They see tattva. And what is tattva? Well, it's thatness. Tat means that. It just means that. And then tva at the end makes it abstract noun. So thatness, we would say in English. But it comes to mean, as Prabhupada translates here, truth. So see, and then darśibhiḥ, what is that B ending? This is indicating, first of all, that it's instrumental. That means by whom is this understood? By whom is this seen? It's tattva-darshis, plural. So it's not just one, and it's also not two, but it's at least three. There are at least three. So tattva-darshis, in other words, Yeah, Prabhupada translates as seers. So what do the seers see? They see a truth, and what is this truth? That's described in the first two lines of the verse. They see that nāsato, of what is non-existent, there is no vidyate, there is no bhāva, there is no continuity, there's no permanence. So this is very abstract language. It's very philosophical. There are many verses in the Bhagavad-gita which are echoing verses in the Upanishads, and the Upanishads can be very abstract because they're dealing with very abstract subjects. So nāsato vidyate bhāvo, and then the next line is saying the opposite of the first line. Nābhāvo vidyate sataḥ. So it's kind of playing with these words. There's no reference in this verse explicitly to the soul, but we understand that must be what it's talking about. Why do we understand that? Well, because that's in the context of what Krishna is telling Arjuna. What did Krishna tell Arjuna in verse number 13, famously? Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yovanam jana dṛṣṭatra na muhyati. There's in the body, dehe, asmin dehe, in this body, as in this body, there is komaram, there is yovanam, there is jara, there is changing from childhood to youth to old age, tata, in the same way. So it's a comparison, yata, as such and such, tata, similarly. Deha antara prapti, at the end of this life, the prapti, the getting, the acquisition of the end of life, dṛṣṭatra na muhyati, the dhira, the one who is sober, tatra, there, in respect to that, na muhyati, is not bewildered, is not confused. So he's saying that there's something that is different from the body. The body is changing, and it's changing also at death, and the dhira, the sober person, is not disturbed. And then the next verse is interesting because Krishna is here he gives us a very practical advice. It's his first practical instruction. The non-permanent appearance of happiness, distress, their disappearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of the seasons, winter and summer. They arise from what? Yes, matra sparshas. Actually, matra means only, merely. So merely from the senses. or merely from the touch. Sparsha means touching. So all of this happens, why? Because of contact of the senses. They arise from sense perception, of sky and of bharata. And one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Okay, tongues, titikshasva bharata. So this word titikshasva is interesting. It's in the imperative form. So it's when you're a child and your father tells you, go to bed now. You want to stay up and play, and your father says, no, go to bed. It's a command, right? Of course, we never listen to Father when we want to play, right? But this is the Supreme Father speaking, and he's saying, titikshasva. And I believe the form of this is also indicating the idea to try to tolerate, because it has this prefix T. It's a, what is it called? It's a repetition of the first syllable. Titikshasva, not just tikshasva, but titikshasva. So, and this has the sense of desiring to do something. So it would be like, try to tolerate. Because Srila Prabhupada explained in one lecture he gave in Germany in 1974, he said we have to tolerate, but there comes a point when we can no longer tolerate, and that is called death. When the soul can no longer tolerate the body, that's when the soul leaves. Of course, it also happens, if one gets a very severe shock or the body is wounded in a serious way, one may fall unconscious. You could say that's a kind of temporary death. Because, again, the soul simply cannot tolerate that pain. But the point here is, I think Krishna is beginning his practical instruction, which will come in the course of the Gita. So he's saying, you want to understand that you are not this body, you want to understand what is spirit. Step one, try to tolerate the dualities that you experience because of sparsha, because of the touch of the skin. And that means also, we always think this means just tolerate what we don't like. But actually, it also means tolerate what you like. Tolerate enjoyment, tolerate happiness. What? That makes no sense. When I'm happy, I want to be happy. And actually, that's a problem. Why? Because we become absorbed in our experience of happiness, and then when the difficulty comes, then there's more pain, because you see what I'm saying. So the tolerance, and that will be elaborated in later verses. The tolerance is both ways. It's for the happiness, the distress, heat, cold, sukha, dukkha. Yeah. So tolerate the sukha as well as the dukkha. That's not so. In some ways, we can easier understand that we should tolerate misery, then we can understand that we should tolerate happiness, right? Okay. Prabhupada says, there is no endurance of the changing body. Who can deny that? That the body is changing every moment by the actions and reactions of the different cells is admitted by modern medical science, and thus growth and old age are taking place in the body. Yeah, recent neuroscience has come to understand what they call neuroelasticity. Did you know that? Elastic, something that's elastic and stretch and change. So they're saying that whereas before they thought, unlike the rest of the body, the brain cells are kind of fixed and unchanging, they're finding, no, it's possible to change. We can change the way we think and feel by various methods. But the spirit soul exists permanently, remaining the same despite all changes of the body and the mind. That is the difference between matter and spirit. Now, we don't really have experience, in one sense, of this. What do we have experience of that does not change? But we do have some sense of it because dehinosmin yata dehe komanam, because we can look back, we can see photos of ourselves when we were children, and we can say, that is me. So there's a sense of continuity, but still it's pretty mysterious how that works. One thing that the Bhagavad-gita is doing, what Krishna is doing in the Bhagavad-gita, you could say, is arguing against something. What are they arguing against? What is Krishna arguing against? He's arguing for one thing and against something else. Yes? Well, that would be a sort of Charvak philosophy, but in this case, yes, that might be also in the background, but maybe more specifically. Any idea? Yeah. That's maybe there, but this is more specifically in relation to what he's speaking here, I think. Yes. No, I guess I should make another hint. Who is he arguing against? He's arguing against a certain group, a certain philosophy, a certain tradition. No, not here. Because this verse you could take in a very impersonal way. Yes. The Charvakas. That also. No, there's one more. Starts with a B. Huh? The Buddhists, yeah. What is he arguing against the Buddhists? What do the Buddhists say? The soul doesn't exist. There is no such thing. Anatmavada, it's called. This is super simplified and it's been debated by scholars. Do they really mean that? But essentially the idea is We all experience suffering. And why do we experience suffering? Because we think that we are something permanent, which is experiencing all these things. And if we would just give up the idea that there's an I which suffers, then we could overcome all suffering. And so the process of Buddhist sadhana, the Eightfold Path, is to realize that, to, in effect, break down it's called bundle theory. The idea there's a bundle of things, mental, physical, emotional, all the different things they seem to come together, and we think that's me. And in some sense, they're right. All the things that we think we are not. Whatever we think we are, we're not. We're not the body. We're not the mind. We're not. But they're saying, take it all apart and look inside, and what do you see? There's nothing there. And therefore, there's no suffering. So Krishna is saying in many, many verses here, he's saying, no, there is a permanent self, but it's utterly and completely different from the body. Okay, maybe we could have a look at something now. Is that possible to fire up this machine? So to see the screen, I think you over here may want to shift your location. Where did that black bag go? The black bag is behind. Oh, it's here. Mm-hmm. Okay, Bhagavad-gita ki jai. You have to become smaller. Okay. So, let's back up to the previous slide. Shri Sripala Lakshmi Nrsimhadeva ki. Okay, did we talk about this? I think we did a few days ago. Looks like an electrical schematic. And we talked about this, right? And then the next slide, yes. So the idea was putting the Bhagavatam in the center. We can think about how it is in relation to all these other sources, these other relations. So Vedic literature on the bottom. Yeah. Oh, okay. And then the commentarial tradition is above, so that refers to all the commentators to the Bhagavatam, starting with Sridhar Swami, and then there are later commentators, and we have Srila Prabhupada's commentary on the Bhagavatam, which is based on commentaries of the earlier acharyas. And then we have non-Indic traditions, and it's hard to see there, but Judaism, Christianity, Islam, indigenous religion, shamanic religion, and Greek philosophy, just as examples of what are non-Indic traditions, which are very much present in the world and which can have some relation to ideas in the Bhagavatam. And we talked about Joan of Arc, remember? She was one example. Prabhupada said, yes, that is also Bhagavatam. She is also Bhagavatam. And then on the right we have current readers, that's us. And in relation to us, we have our different contexts, our experiences, cultural, historical, and psychophysical contexts of ourselves. All of this are somehow things to be either consciously aware of or we will be aware of when we read the Bhagavatam. Now let's go to the next slide. And this is a different way of thinking about the Bhagavatam. At the very bottom, you see what looks like a sort of waves. That's the ocean of Veda. And because our acharyas tell us that the Veda, which we are, the Vedas that we have, the Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva Veda, what we have are only a small percentage of the Veda as a whole. I think he says less than 10%. So we can imagine Veda as knowledge of all sorts, like an ocean. There's an ocean of knowledge. And out of this ocean, or emerging in the form of text, of literature, of written, specifically written sacred literature, on the left side you see Rig, Sama, Yajur, Atharva Veda, and those are called the Samhitas, the collections, and related to those are another type of literature called Brahmanas, and another type called Aranyakas, and another type called Upanishads. And these are all sort of tied into the Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva Vedas. And all of that together is the literary basis of what's called the Brahminical traditions. You see up on the left, upper left, Brahminical traditions. Then we can go over to the right side, and there's another sort of arching circle that goes up, and this is representing, but it's coming also out of the Veda, and this is called Shramanical traditions, or Shramanical traditions, and Shramana means basically ascetic. The traditions where the ideals of giving up material life are represented. Practicing austerities, going to the forests, living on fruits and roots, practicing yoga, very severe austerities, standing in water in the winter, sitting in the middle of fires in the summer, all these kind of things are, and there's several traditions associated with this, and the ones that survived over time, there were many, but the ones that survived to today are the Jains and the Buddhists. So these are kind of on the periphery, they're on the outside, around what we're mainly interested in, which are these three big circles in the middle. On the bottom is the Bhagavad-gita, then comes the Bhagavata Purana, which is the Śrīmad Bhagavatam, and on the top, for followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then I mentioned two sort of currents. So you can imagine we have this ocean of Veda, and then there's some streams which I didn't represent, but maybe you can imagine on the left and the right side of these three circles. And on the left side is the Bhakti river. Maybe I should have said stream or river. And on the right side is the ascetic river. And then you see on the left and right of Bhagavad-gita, it's written very small, so you might not see. On the left it says yajna, and on the right it says ahimsa. And the idea here is that yajna is the main activity in relation to Brahminical traditions. And ahimsa is the ideal, the practice of the ascetic traditions, the Shramanical traditions. And all of these, all of what I've described, it all is one way or another, directly or indirectly, sort of washing into and flowing in and out of the Bhagavad-gita, the Śrīmad Bhagavatam, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I don't know if this actually makes any sense or if it just looks like a bunch of strange lines and circles. Does it make any sense? Yeah. Anyone have any question about what I'm showing here? Yes, Björn.
What is the position of the Buddhists if they, I thought they were even lower than Mayavadis because they don't accept Krishna, but it seems that it is kind of a part of the Veda ocean.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, from one angle, we can say we consider them lower than Mayavadi, specifically because of their Anatmavada philosophy. But from other perspectives, they are still within the sphere of knowledge, because number one, they accept that there is need for a process of practice of some sort of elevation. So they're not animal. They have a notion of dharma, In fact, they use the word Dharma very much. Buddhist Dharma is there. They also, you would be surprised perhaps, but they have highly developed psychology and highly developed ethics, system of ethics. There are elaborate discussions about Buddhist ethics. Yeah. When I was in Hong Kong, we visited some Buddhist center, didn't we? Very nice people. Very devoted, actually, in some way, right?
Sometimes I have a doubt in mind, like Buddhists, they are more like, they're in search for the nothingness. But
Yeah.
at the same time, we see Buddhists very much involved in things.
Yeah.
Sometimes even it's kind of like power hungry. Go to temple,
Mhm.
offer something,
Yeah.
pray, and hoping something in return.
Yeah, of course. You see all kinds of Buddhists on different levels as well. But I got to know one Buddhist nun. She was teaching in the university where I was teaching, and she was very, very, very sweet and very kind. And she came to our temple one time. It was Govardhan Puja, and she took prasadam, and she especially liked puris. Anyway. Yeah, that's what I'm saying in some sense. Just like Prabhupada says also a karmi, a proper karmi can be considered a transcendentalist, in that sense that they are seeking elevation. So the Buddhism is also about elevation. And in the Bhagavad-gita, Krishna speaks about buddhi yoga. And he also uses some Buddhist terminology. He speaks of stita prajna. Prajna is a very Buddhist word. He also speaks of Brahma nirvana, where nirvana is a very Buddhist word. But he speaks of Brahma nirvana. It qualifies. Yeah, maybe someday I should put together some seminar about Buddhism. Yes, Sanjay.
Can you elaborate on this? Why you made it currents?
There's a bhakti current, there's an ascetic current, which indicates, as you mentioned before, the word indicates movement, and how it, you said very amazingly, how it washes in and out of the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad-gita. And so, what is the dynamic feature of those two things and in Krishna consciousness?
Yeah, I would put it in historical terms to start with, that one can see how over the centuries bhakti has kind of developed and become more and more articulated in various ways in India. Historically, it's usually traced to the Alvars and the Nayanmars. The Alvars were 12 Tamil poets, South India, who are expressing very intense feelings of devotion to Narayana, mainly Narayana, although there's also some glorification of Krishna, as I remember. Yes, there's certainly. And the modern speculation dating of them is from the 6th to the 9th centuries of the Common Era. The tradition will say, no, they're much, much older. But, yeah, in terms of his historical perception, modern historical, they're like that. And the same is true, you could say, of ascetic traditions. Historians have kind of traced back through the literature to see that, it goes, they say it goes back much earlier. The ascetic traditions go back to, maybe to 1,000 years before the Common Era. So, yeah, just thinking, I guess my idea of currents and so on is there's a historical movement, you could say. And of course, the Bhagavatam, we certainly want to say that Bhakti is right in the center of it. But also the Bhagavatam has a very strong emphasis on asceticism. But it's devotional asceticism, right? It's everything is inflected through or by bhakti. Yeah, I would just put it that way. Akila, yeah.
Yeah, Maharaj, so you mentioned that this is... You said that the three Vedas are only about 10% of the whole ocean.
4 Vedas, yeah.
Whole ocean of the Vedas.
Jiva Goswami says that. Jiva Goswami.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, this idea of ocean, that's just my way of expressing it. But I'm saying there's a lot more, so that it's so much, it's like an ocean. I don't think Jiva Goswami says that. I don't remember exactly how he puts it, but he says it's a very, what we have is a very small fraction. And it's one of his arguments that's in the tattva-sandarbha, the first of the 6 sandarbhas. It's all part of his way of explaining why the Srimad Bhagavatam is our authority. He says the Vedas, the Rig, Sama, Yajur, Atharva. He said, who can understand it? And in any case, how much of it do we? It's only a fraction. How are you gonna relate to that? And then he goes step by step through literature, the Puranas, and then he finally says, kind of, just surrender. It's all in the Bhagavatam. But of course he says it in a very exacting and detailed way. And then he starts, and then the rest of the Sandarbhas, the Bhagavat Sandarbha, the Paramatma Sandarbha, the Krishna Sandarbha. No, Bhagavat, Paramatma, then Bhakti Sandarbha, and then Krishna, and then Priti Sandarbha. It's all based on Bhagavatam. He's just kind of systematizing the theology of the Bhagavatam in the rest of the Sandarbhas. Yeah.
I would like to ask you which of the 2 books bhakti tones, but
Yeah.
which is
I like to think of the Chaitanya Charitamrita as the Gaudiya Vaishnava commentary par excellence on the Bhagavatam, in which the Lord himself, appearing as Radha Krishna Nahe Anya, as not other than Radha and Krishna, is demonstrating what it means to hear and chant and follow the and live the Bhagavatam. He is in literary theory, modern literary theory, they will speak of the ideal reader. So when someone sits down to write a book, he or she has in mind an ideal reader, someone who will really get what they want to say. And so, who is the ideal reader of the Srimad Bhagavatam? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so there's so much description in the Bhagavatam of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Not reading, but hearing. He's hearing the Bhagavatam from his friends, from the devotees who know the Bhagavatam through and through, and who sort of pick up when Mahaprabhu has a certain mood. They kind of lift him up further by quoting an appropriate verse or an appropriate passage from the Bhagavatam. And he becomes even more ecstatic. Of course, Chaitanya Charitamrita is also a summary of the commentaries of Rupa Goswami and Jiva Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami. Summary of their writings, which are elaborations. So Rupa Goswami elaborates on the idea of rasa, and he elaborates on the process of practicing bhakti. First, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, then bhava bhakti, then prema bhakti. So he's systematizing and he's showing a way of practice. And the Chaitanya Charitamrita is summarizing all of that, especially because Krishnadas Kaviraj wrote for the people of Bengal who were not readers of Sanskrit. And so he summarized very much what is found in the Goswami literature. Yeah.
Gurudev, I would like to ask if you know something about this. I mean, it's more in the Bengal area or more in the upper area maybe from India, where maybe more or less Chaitanya Charitamrita is more prominent. How is more in the south? It's a little bit different tradition. Maybe you can maybe explain a little bit how they accept or know, or
in South India?
Yeah, more or less.
In South India, you mainly find the Sri Vaishnava tradition, followers of Ramanuja Acharya. And prior to Ramanuja was Yamuna Acharya. Prior to Yamuna Acharya were these 12 alvars. It's a completely separate line, separate tradition, different parampara. Then there's the Madhvas. They're more on the southwest side. You can say, well, concentrated. Their center is Udupi, which is southwest Karnataka state. And then they have their influence also in wider area. Bangalore, I think, is a lot of Madhva followers like that. And then in the west, northwest, there are the followers of Vallabhacharya, especially, in terms of these four sampradayas. The Nimbarkas are in Vrindavan, and I don't know, they're kind of, I've met one Nimbarki Brahmin in Kathmandu many years ago. So they're here and there. Yeah. The Gaudiya Vaishnava, Gaudiya means related to the area of Gauda Desh, which is kind of generally north and east side of India, is Gauda Desh. So Gaudiya means of the Gauda area. Some say we should not be called Gaudiya, we should be called Chaitanya Vaishnavas, because now the followers of Chaitanya are all over the world. So it's no longer restricted to Gauda. Yeah. Good. Okay, we just spoke on one slide. There's quite many more, but we'll have to leave it at that. Okay, thank you all very much. I hope I didn't confuse you too much. I'm trying to show there's a whole universe of literature, and how does it all relate? I think this can help us to understand what it is we're reading, can appreciate more what we're reading. For example, I mentioned Krishna is arguing, you could say, against the Buddhists. Now someone will say, wait a minute, the Buddhists came later than Krishna. Okay, or there have always been Buddhists in one form or another. That's one of the explanations. There's always been some form of Buddhism, some denial of the existence of the soul. So Krishna is there. Or you can say he's anticipating the Buddhists and saying, don't fall into their trap. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Goti Vaishnavinda ki jai, Gaur Premanande.